Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Culture Track, brought to you by OC Tanner. I'm your host, Thomas Papp, partner, head of customer experience here at the HR Congress. OC Tanner improves workplace culture through personalized employee recognition solutions, so people feel appreciated, do their best work, and come to stay. Thousands of the most respected organizations around the world rely on OC Tanner's software and service to ensure their employees accomplish and appreciate great work. They also rely on academic-grade research publications in their annual Global Culture Report as they track, analyze, and forecast worldwide culture trends. Please do visit our website for more information on OC Tanner, and you can find some more information on their website as well. The link is going to be here, and it is also on the HR Congress website. Please do interact with us. So jump on LinkedIn, jump on Twitter. The more interaction, the better. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a rapidly changing world. We have rapidly declining and changing world population. The baby boomers are retiring. COVID brought us the boom of the remote, now hybrid work, which is definitely here to stay. After the COVID years, we started the great resignations. Employers were dumbfounded with the number of talent walking out on the door. Then we flipped it around a year later and started the mass layoffs. Inflation, war, energy crisis, global warming. The world is becoming an uncertain and unpredictable world. How does this all impact company culture, you might ask? Performance, employee well-being, recognition, belonging. We need to be equipped with the right knowledge and tools to get the job done. To build right company culture, sense of belonging and community, recognition, rewards, 360 feedback are some of the things we have to do right as HR leaders. Today, we will explore culture transformation, the relationship of leadership and culture, the 2023 Global Culture Report by OC Tanner. We have a fantastic speaking panel. The first session shall be from Edwin Schenck, the head of talent rewards, performance, culture and change from Bayer. The session is going to be on engage, shape and perform culture transformation at Bayer. This will be our first session. After that, Gabriele Fanta shall be joining us, head of global HR at Körber. Her session will be on leadership and culture, how we turn Körber into a positive blue. After that, we shall be joined by Meghan Stettler, the director of OC Tanner's Institute. She shall be giving us a talk on the 2023 Global Culture Report highlights. After this track, we shall be continuing in the afternoon with our belonging track. And after that, the Leadership Reimagined track. But now, without further ado, I would like to welcome Edwin on the stage. Edwin, hello. Great to have you with us.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you perfectly fine.
Excellent, excellent. Pleasure to be with all of you and to share a little bit the Bayer story. So what I want to share a little bit today in a quick story is how we're actually transforming Bayer and how cultural transformation is a very important part of that. As mentioned, I am the head of performance rewards and culture in Bayer. I joined Bayer about 5 years ago as actually the head of HR for the consumer health division. And since half a year, I moved to this new position based in Leverkusen in Germany. So if we talk a little bit about culture transformation, and it was shared a bit in the beginning as well. I mean, of course, we cannot ignore the fact that the world continues to change and change at an even more rapid pace. And I think you know all of the challenges, so I'm not going to kind of go deep on this one. But what we do know is that if we continue to do what we're doing before the world started to change drastically, we are not going to be successful. And if you define culture in a very simplistic definition as how stuff gets done in an organization, you need to change the way you operate, and culture is a very important element of that. So if we think a little bit about what's happening in the world, and how do we need to adjust in the company Bayer that I am part of. I mean, there is a new future of work equation. So the future of work, workplace, and workforce. How does that impact the way you work? And there is, of course, also a lot of new worth-it equations within employees. So health and well-being, including mental health, become more important. Leaders also need to make the office worth the commute. So what is important in community management, and how does the office play a role into that? I mean, flexible work, and I think we all experienced that also during the pandemic. It drastically increased the number of time spent in meetings for the average user since February 2020. And of course, and lastly, is the social capital in a hybrid workplace is changing. That's a little bit of context. If I take it actually coming back to then, what is it in Bayer? So we're a fantastic company. We have a fantastic purpose: health for all, hunger for none. I think every employee in Bayer is contributing to that with their full heart and soul. But that doesn't mean that we also don't have our challenges. And our challenges are mainly around accountability, empowerment, and simplification. These are data coming from our employee engagement surveys, and these data have been persistent with us. We have very good engagement. We have highly employees who want to take accountability, but yet if you look sometimes in the way we operate, there are elements to really impact this. What we then also saw as a company is that we're a three-divisional based company. As you might know, we're in pharma, consumer health, and in crop science, that these challenges have been actually consistent across the divisions. So this kind of led to the discussion with the board of management and the leadership team to say, okay, why do we want to tackle this separately by division, and why don't we actually create a movement? And this movement is what we call ESP, and I'll talk a bit more around that. It's Engage, Shape, Perform, it stands for. And kind of setting this as kind of a new leadership expectation for our organization moving forward. Building on a couple of pillars. First of all, very strong foundation. We have a highly engaged organization. We have great talent. We have a strong core. And as I mentioned, our purpose, our vision, and our values are very, very dear to us. And of course, we have great divisions with fantastic strategic plans in order to serve more of the community out there with our products and solutions. But as said, we need to tackle our common pain points. And if we dive a bit deeper on what I said before, so decision making is not always done at the level where it should be done. So how can we really help leaders empower their teams? We have a high perceived organizational culture complexity. So, I mean, of course, if you work in a matrix environment and if you work in a three-divisional matrix, this could lead to unnecessary complexity and slower execution. So what are some of the ways that we can work differently in order to move with speed? And then if you look at it also in general, how do we really create a performance culture? And how do we really recognize and reward our top performers and help our poorer performers to kind of step up and deliver an even better outcome? This is actually the journey that we embarked on. And on that journey, we said, if you look at it from a very simplistic perspective, there are three components that we need to get better at. So engage. creating a truly global, highly engaged organization at top performance. Shape is actually making sure our business is future ready. Our business and organization seizes the opportunity of the future, and then perform is deliver on all our stakeholder commitments and our ambitions. And stakeholders are broad here. There are shareholders, there are the customers that we serve, there are our own employees to make sure that we actually deliver on that. So Sophia, engage, shape, perform is actually what the P stands for. This has been kind of installed as our leader expectations, and I'll come a little bit later on how we brought this alive. But we have created very simple narratives, very easy to remember narratives for our leaders, what is expected from them, like this inclusive workforce, like the collaboration and the power, like simplification at the core. Do we sometimes make things more complex than they need to be? Deliver on our financial and non-financial business goals. So these are all the elements that we are expecting our leaders to really focus on. So very exciting journey, and we actually decided to do this journey as one buyer, so that we actually engage all our leaders around that. That's a little bit on the overall program. Now, the overall program, of course, has certain pillars in execution, and we call these cultural game changers in our organization. And for that, we have identified 5 priorities. One is performance excellence. So that is fostering employee development, that is linking performance to recognition, to rewards, and to development. And that is both focusing on the what and the how. We were already on that journey, but we're actually dialing that up to even do a better job on that. Talent development, together with my peers in the organization. How do we really attract the right talent? How do we develop? How do we really make sure leaders bring out the best in their people? I already mentioned inclusion and diversity. We have very strong goals on that one to achieve. And this is also critical if you really want to have a high performing culture. You can only do that by having an inclusive and diverse workforce. Future of work, many things are ongoing there. One of the practices that I want to highlight here is that we have started already 2 years ago a practice which is called #wow. And #wow is ways of working where we actually giving teams, leaders, and employees tools in order to make faster decisions, in order to build better teams. And there are 12 practices available to the entire organization that we have hundreds of coaches engaged into to make sure that they can be used and lead to better outcome. And then, of course, governance, structure, and decisions. So how do we really simplify decision making? How do we have the right organizational setups when you look at spans of control, micro-teams, but a lot more than organizational structure is who in the end makes the decision and drive things forward. That's in decomplexifying processes, systems, and that's where data plays a very crucial role into. We have certainly some of our systems are really good, but some of our other systems don't have the best user experience. So how do we modernize that, and how do you really create an impact on that? So this leads actually to leadership expectations where ESP is grounded onto, moving to processes that we want to actually get better at, but at the same time also make sure we improve our system landscape, and in that way help our leaders achieve a better outcome. So maybe if I go a little bit deeper into, okay, that's all great. Sorry, I moved one slide too far. These are all great initiatives, but what does success look like? And then what do we want success to feel like for the organization? And this is how we are going to measure success also in the future. Are we able to attract the best talent? Are we able to keep the best talent? Are we able to move the talent organization forward? What about skills, and how do we evolve into? How do we move into that? We of course want to be an impact driver. I mean, purpose is critical, as you all know, to our employees, And again, what better purpose could you have as a company as buyer? So how do we really make sure people connect to that even more than they currently are? For employees, energy and passion, they need to feel empowered. They need to make sure that they help each other get better to constructive feedback, working together as one team. And in the end, of course, that employees feel that they can deliver on their own goals, their own aspirations, is the most important element, and it's more important than following, if I would call it like that, the internal process steps. Okay, so how are we activating this? So we are actually activating this to several elements. So as I mentioned, we have the game changers. These are being implemented consistently into the organization. At the same time, we have also country activations that are happening, where actually we bring the entire buyer community together at country level, where we actually going to have discussions on, okay, what is expected from our leaders? How are they committing behind that? What does it mean in the country and culture you operate in? We are actually having new ways of working, learning series, the hashtag wow practices, that will help our employees to learn and apply agile ways of working in order to drive to better, faster outcome. And then we also have community engagement events where we actually work in open space, in hackathons, in Shark Tank principles, to hear the voice of our employees and co-create solutions locally where it makes most sense. So that's where we are on the activation in country. But we're also activating our leaders. And when you create a movement, and I think you all know that, you of course have to make sure that you engage people at all levels in the organization. And we also have to make sure that leaders understand where we want to go to. So in 2022, we started with the rollout of our leader expectations. These leader expectations, as mentioned, were linked to engage, shape, perform as an outcome. And in 2022, we actually had our, call it top 500 leaders, going to what we call 4 leadership huddles. In those 4 leadership huddles, we equipped our leaders with peer-to-peer coaching, but at the same time with very simple tools of how can you make an impact in an easy and simple way. We help them understand what it takes to be a leader as a coach. We help them to understand to how to set really ambitious goals and how to help people hold accountability for that. We helped our leaders, what is the concept around total responsibility. And so instead of saying it is the problem of somebody else, no, how do I own the problem, and how do I build my share of responsibility into the solution? So we had 500 leaders going through these huddles, and at the same time, they were then asked to practice these new ways with their teams. We also actually started to roll out, and that is with our 10,000 people leaders. And these 10,000 people leaders are going to a similar experience around these 4 practices. And it is being facilitated by our top 500 leaders, where they share their stories, where they share what they went through, where they share their learnings. So we actually built a community of leaders together with the people leaders in the organization. And lastly, on the country activation, as I mentioned before, that's where we actually are building that community together as well and get everybody involved. We are doing this consistently. We are doing this country by country, and we're doing this where the energy goes. I will address your question in a moment, Otti, so give me a second to kind of finalize the presentation. Now, okay, so what are early results? So we started the initiative in February. We are now November. We are still in the rollout phase of many of those elements. However, a few weeks ago, we got the results of our employee voice survey. And our employee voice is what we call our employee engagement survey. And we measure accountability, empowerment, and simplification there for the entire organization. And we saw already uptake in those results. Now, of course, this is not only related to initiatives that we're doing. This is related thanks to the initiatives of all divisions, all leaders, all of HR. But doing this consistently, making this public, talking about that, is already showing that we can impact those results. So we're going to continue the journey. We're building the plane as we're flying. So we're also adding new initiative and approaches to it. But we can already say that it is highly welcomed and an integral part of the strategies that divisions and buyer are building, and of how our organization is actually going to modernize itself from a cultural perspective. I know there was a lot to share here, so I'm looking forward also to answer any questions. So I'll start with maybe a very good question. So on the typical traditional top-down cascade of superior head of wisdom, how is this building on collective creativity in the design? How is it shaping good organizational character? Who we are, not what we deliver. Are we not perpetuating the same old best practices which have failed us for the last 5 decades? Very good question. And let me give you a very simple perspective on that. And every perspective is company relative. So my answer to that question might be different in the company that you are, or in the company that the way your company is being set up. So first of all, absolutely right. We have to make sure that every employee gets engaged into this journey. And for us, our answer on that is in the game changer initiatives, but it's also in the country activation. So #wow ways of working is for every employee. Country activation is where we actually build the communities and actually help them to be part of the solution. At the same time, when you create a movement, you also have to be sure that top management, and this is kind of this clay middle layer that a lot of times is talking about, that they're with you on that journey. So you cannot decouple the movement with all of the employees with how you actually activate all your leadership and hold your leadership accountable to that as well. And the last thing that that I will also say on this is that for us, it was critical that we do this together as one buyer, instead of doing this separately by each division or each country. And I don't know how it is in your organization, but if you want to create a cultural kind of change at scale, you need to make sure that you have consistent language, consistent approaches, culturally relevant to the country that you're implemented in. And now that we're doing this together, holding all of our leaders accountable and asking them to join this journey, we believe that we're going to get to a better outcome than we do it separately. So that's a bit my answer to this question, but looking forward to any interaction in the future to see what other experiences or the ideas you have on that. So Ilka, you're asking on, can you elaborate on the practices you share to empower employees, simplify decision making, etc. Also, do you have other KPIs for that topic besides surveys, e.g., reduced number of approval processes, but how to measure it? Yeah, great question. So yeah, we have practices which are called even overs. We have practices that are called safe to try, which is a way to come to decisions in a faster way. We have practices that are called rounds to make sure that you create an inclusive environment. And these have been actually installed into the teams to make sure that they can apply them appropriately. We have done that to actually activating cultural coaches and hashtag wow coaches that are actually enabling this in to the organization. Um, we measure this to a couple of elements. An important one for us is the employee voice survey. But there are also other ways that we measure it. So the number of coaches that are actively installing these practices in the organization, the numbers of teams that are producing business outcome. And when we launched it, we actually launched this into intact teams where we measured a team that was creating a new product, for instance, that was in the consumer health division. Do they get to rapid prototyping faster using these practices or not? And we saw that it actually was leading to these outcomes. Um, on reduced number of approval processes, there is a lot more that we're doing, of course, than the cultural initiatives. That's why governance is part of that. For instance, in buyer transformation, we are looking at how do we change our processes? How do we change the number of approval levels that are into this? We are actually together with one of my business colleagues looking at our system landscape where approval levels are baked into to how do we make that easier. So you have to work on the soft, which is the culture. You have to work on the hard, which is on the processes at the same time in order to do that. There will be measurements behind that, but this would lead me in a lot of detail, process by process, of what this looks like. So maybe move to Gabor. You are in the middle of the planned journey. What are your top learning reflections from the last first year? I wouldn't even say that we're in the middle. I would more say we're at the end of the start of the journey. So we are now in a relatively good space of making sure it's embedded into the transformation programs of Bayer and the divisions. We have now it really embedded into our leadership mindsets. The organization knows what we're trying to achieve, but the activation of the game changers, the counter activations, the really making it um, part of how you do it, so that people become self-sustainable. For instance, also on the how practices on the wow practice is still a journey that we're on. One of my learnings on this one is critically important is that you help people understand what you're trying to achieve, and don't take the assumption that everybody is jumping on board because um, even divisions or leaders have an idea around this. When you talk about cultural change, I sometimes say that there are more opinions than that there are solutions in changing an organization. And it does take time to get leaders with you. Not that leaders are against it, but why is it important? Why is it important now? What's in it for me? Why should I engage into this? And repetition, listening, activating is critical with that. Secondly is, and that's always a challenge I think with a lot of initiatives, is more important than the PowerPoint is the execution. And the execution is something that you do have to adjust based on the reality a division or a country is in. And that's why you need to show some flexibility. This is not a control from the top. This is again a movement that we want to do together. I think lastly, what I want to say on this as well, this is a moving target. And what I mean with that is what you envision in the beginning is for sure going to look different when you're 6 months, 1 year, 2 years into the journey. So that's why I use that element as you're building the plane as you're flying is you're going to have to continuously quarter by quarter readjust, see what is working well, what is not working, take the learning, adjust and move on. So I can share a lot more perspectives also, Gabor, later on. But stick to the plan, stick to the journey, despite of the sometimes the challenge you have is the consistency of approach and moving forward with the agility and listening skills to adopt where needed. I think that's a fundamental part of the journey. So Mary Louisa, what are thoughts, plans on how to hold leaders accountable for role modeling the change? It's a great question. Let me first start with saying this is we have great leaders in Bayer. And you cannot emphasize that also in the organizations that you operate in, emphasize that enough. But as you know, the demands of a leader have been increasingly becoming more difficult because of the world is changing, because the expectation of the employees, because of many things. Now, if you look at that context, and if you look at how do you really hold leaders accountable, you first have to recognize that their job is not easy. And then you have to say, okay, how are we going to help you in order to really execute your job? And some of the axes that I sometimes use, Marie-Louise, is in Bayer, there is no leader who would question that this is not important. So if you take that on the x-axis, but if you move it to, is it a priority? Is it urgent? That's where it sometimes gets trumped with all of the other challenges that leaders has. And we have to move the mindset of the leader from important to important and urgent. We measure, we have a leader dashboard where we measure outcomes on the survey, where leaders can compare themselves against other leaders in Bayer, see how am I doing. So this creates a little bit of healthy competition amongst the leaders. We are actually now discussing and defining on how are we going to make sure that we reward the great leaders and help leaders that might need more help. And how you can call that positive and negative consequence management. We haven't fully figured that one out yet. So that's still a discussion that we're doing internally here. So I'd be happy to come back or happy to hear any ideas you might have in how to best do that. And then Joe, most of the companies fail for the culture transformation is because people cannot see the change from leaders. Leaders just talked, but not walk the talk. Yeah, I mean, that is, I mean, you call it authentic leadership, you can call that walking the talk, you can call that many things. But that's also why I personally believe it was critically important we start from the top. And that means in Bayer, our board of management has fully engaged into this. So they're making this in the importance versus urgent. They're putting this change on urgent. They're going themselves to all of the trainings, the huddles, what they need to do in order to do that. Our top 500 leaders, they're going to exactly the same. And why I believe that this is a different initiative than maybe what we've done in the past is our top 500 leaders are actively involved in rolling this out in the experience that our 10,000 leaders are going through. So just to give a reference from roughly our 500 top 500 leaders, 350 of them have signed up to be part of the rollout to the entire organization. If you talk about our 10,000 leaders that we have roughly in Bayer, so people leaders, we already have, and my numbers are 3 weeks old, so they're probably already way higher. We have more than 6,000 people who have signed up for the training experience. And this was not a mandatory request. So if you look at this, you see a huge momentum in the organization if we want to do this. Yeah, more to come, but I'm certainly very excited about this. So, hey, colleagues from Rush, great to see. I was looking at your building when I was Basel based before I moved to this job. At Rush, we also have a what and how component to performance assessment, and the how is equally weighted, sometimes even more in the final assessment. That is very impactful. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think we have. What and how is important for all of it. The question is, how do you operationalize this sometimes, because how do you really make sure leaders assess it in the right way? And that's where I think we play a crucial role as an HR in really sometimes also be courageous in HR and really tell the leaders and hold them accountable for doing it properly. That is always easier said than done, but I couldn't agree more. We are going to measure again, as said, the outcome. We're going to hold leaders accountable for driving progress. And if you have any ideas, Marie-Louisa from Roche, that you say, hey, you might want to think about this, please drop me a note, because more than happy to learn more on that as well. So I think I covered most of the questions. I see that Adela has a similar program, so looking forward to hearing your learners, Adela. Say what were your kind of do's and don'ts if you think about it afterward. But I can tell you that where we are now on this kind of 6-month journey, it is actually beating my expectation. I mean, the way this is embraced, the way our leaders are behind this, the way also our social partners are with us on this journey is nothing short but amazing. So 3 minutes left, so I'll see if I can answer one more question. Could you please clarify how did you overcome the initial resistance from the leaders? I was curious to know if you have developed a journey map to help employees and new starters visualize the future state of desired cultural outcomes. So 2 questions. So Claudia, I mean, first of all, what I think is important is that you help leaders solve the problems that they have. And that's why we started with the common problems at Bayer. So everybody in Bayer wanted to step up on how do we drive accountability. Every leader in Bayer wanted to step up on how do you drive empowerment. And everybody in Bayer, every leader wanted to simplify us as an organization on decision making. So we started to address with a real business problem and business problems that were common. And that was actually the key to overcome the initial resistance. Then it comes down to sticking to the communication, being clear on how the rollout is going to look like, engaging leaders in the communication. So many of the communications that we're doing on Engage, Shape, Perform is actually what we call leader-led. It's not necessarily HR only on stage, but it's senior leaders talking to the community as to why this is important. And then walking the talk. I mean, the leaders who walk the talk, put them in the spotlight. Make sure that you take it seriously, and then the rest will follow. Have we developed a journey map to help employees and new starters visualize the future state of desired cultural outcomes? Yes and no. We have an emerging journey map, but there's still more work to be done onto that as we're building the plane as we're flying. So more to come on that one. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the session, because I have a stop at 10 past 11, I think, to hand over to the next presenter. So in case you have any questions, you know where to find me on LinkedIn or contact me over email. Thank you for your attention.
Edwin, thank you so much. This has been a great session. And indeed, ladies and gentlemen, if you do want to get engaged with Edwin, then I'm guessing LinkedIn would be the best way.
Excellent.
Awesome. And next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have Gabriele Fanta, the head of global HR at Körber Group. Gabriele shall bring a session on leadership and culture, how we turn Körber into a positive blue. Welcome on the stage. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for being with me, and I posted it already into the chat. I'm open also to answering questions in between, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people ask yourself the question now, what the F word is Körber? And it's pretty clear that you maybe do not know much about our company, and I will a bit explain it to you. And I posted a link into the chat of the Körber experience, where you can check all our past, how the company has been established, our present, so what businesses to expect, and also a glimpse into the future of a company. It's interactive, kind of virtual reality worlds. And yeah, please check it afterwards, step into it. And yeah, if you have questions, just post it, and I will stop and pause and see what's in the chat. And also thanks to Edwin, I mean, amazing project, really great things to learn also from my end. And also I could comment lots of questions here as well, what you also is posing towards Edwin. I mean, just fascinating what you just try to do. So Körber, positive blue. Yeah, again, welcome to that session. To me, I actually will celebrate my 2nd anniversary tomorrow with Körber as CHRO. Before that, I was crossing actually industries and jobs. I started my early career after business administration studies in marketing, doing PR, crisis communication afterwards, and then into HR kind of a decade ago. And I personally love HR, and I also love communications, and it's exactly what we have to do when we have to pursue a common ground for leadership and culture building as well. Communicating, over-communicating, and setting a solid ground to enable dialogue. So maybe coming back to the basics, what's Körber all about? Actually, we have around about 2 billion sales, and even more now than 12,000 employees, since we had 2 major acquisitions this year. We are a pretty global player. We have more than 100 locations around the globe. We have luckily a very low employee turnover, and we have a super comfortable situation that we only have one shareholder. This is the Körber Foundation. You may have heard about the Körber Foundation before. They do lots on international dialogue, on science. They issue the European Science Prize, and they do in the area of Hamburg, which is our, let's say, headquarters location, a lot in the field of culture. If you go into the activities piece, you see that our home turf is still Europe, with growing percentages in America and Asia, and we also want to grow internationally quite a bit. And if you look at our job board, I'll come back to this later, you will find round about 1,000 positions which are open, because most of our business areas are growing. Coming back, what's Körber all about? I want to show you our business areas. It all started with our founder, Kurt E. Körber, when he was founding the business in 1946. And this business was all about how to put, let's say, tobacco and cigarettes making into a more industrial process. And still up until today, technologies, the business area technologies, is doing these solutions for the customers service, but also for food. Straw maker is one of our products as well. And in the new future now, they're working on cell maker activities, which means battery cells. If we move over to tissue, I'm pretty sure that you have been in touch today with a product which has been manufactured very likely on our machines and equipment, because tissue is producing machinery equipment which helps to produce hygienic products like toilet paper or paper napkins. So pretty sure that you have been in touch with us today. And the same applies to supply chain. We offer not only warehouse solutions, but we support whole supply chain solutions. Maybe the parcel you will receive later on today, or you have received already, your mail, has been also run across a thing which has been produced by Körber. If we look at the pandemic, the pharma business area kicks in, since pharma is doing all kind of support for producing, packaging pharma goods and materials. And also, if you got vaccinated against COVID, this is also very likely that this vaccination has been done on a product of our company. Our newest child is the business area digital. They develop digital solutions for all our businesses. Let me just tell you 2 examples, since we do a lot of venture building. One of the ventures is one which is doing inspections also at pharma. So those digital solutions can help you find out if the product has some problems, or if it's just, like little bubbles into it. And another one is optimizing solutions across all machines a company may has to enhance overall equipment effectiveness. And this product is even can be run, so to speak, agnostic of the manufacturer of the equipment. So you can see that we really think into ecosystems. That's for a moment a quick glimpse into what Körber is doing. And since September 22, all companies operate under the umbrella of the Körber brand, so the name of our founders. Why is that new to us? Well, in the year 2019, our company, which has been built by a buy and build strategy, was composed out of more than 50 brands. And then the decision was made that we will all form a new one, or not new one, but let's say a common brand, which is the Körber brand, named after our founder. And why is that? I mean, we have the intent to pursue market leadership through technology leadership. And sometimes, since you can combine solutions out of our business areas, let's take digital and supply chain, or digital and tissue, or supply chain and tissue, it was necessary to explain what's Körber all about, because with more than 50 brands, you can easily, just confuse the customer. So with the external brand rollout, that's sure that there's lots of internal stuff to do to, first of all, build the employer reputation under the new blue worlds, and also ensure that the employer reputation counts onto an employer brand, which you can see externally. And how did we do it? Very easy. We start with our people. Körber has been a super entrepreneurial person. He was having and holding more than 200 patents for several things, not only related to machinery and equipment. Körber has been building, but complete different stuff, like safety doors, whatever, complete different branches, super entrepreneurial. And also we think that the people working in our company, no matter if they're doing and running payroll, or if they're working in digital on fancy solutions, for the sake of our customer, all people are entrepreneurs. And when we started our anniversary planning, since we had the 75th company anniversary last year, and it was the pandemic, we thought, hey, why shouldn't we let internal people shine and show what they are doing, and why for them it makes sense to belong to Körber? And actually, we have been looking for these people in our intranets and asking our leaders and sending emails, and we have been overwhelmed by the answers and the feedbacks. We originally were looking for 75 people only, but in the end, it was hundreds. And this is a selection of our career pioneers we portray in internal communications and also on external platforms such as LinkedIn. And we continue that series. If you follow me, or if you follow Körber or our companies on LinkedIn, you will see that we still continue that series. First of all, it's nice for my colleagues to stand out internally and just show to colleagues they may never have met, because we have so many sites and so many businesses, what they are doing. And secondly, also show in an authentic way to the outside world what's moving people. And if I take one in the left-hand corner, Jürgen Krebs, I mean, he's also telling publicly a funny story. He was with Körber, then decided to leave the company, and then he's explaining why he came back short time after again. So it's authentic stories. It's not all about, glossy stuff. Also, the pictures are not done and selected by a jury or so. That's what our people suggest. So that's what I like, that it's pretty authentic, that you can reach them, that you can also talk to them if you want to do so. And just portraying the variety and diversity out of our people. Thanks for your comment, Adela. I also like the initiative. And we're still finding new pioneers. I mean, we had Celine this week. She's not in the picture yet. She is actually an HR colleague. She was an HR journalist in France, and she was now promoted into a managing director role, one of our youngest managing directors. And she openly speaks up like, hey, I'm a single mom and so on. We do not want to force people to tell about private surroundings in public, right? But it makes sense that they really say what's really gluing them to our company and, so to speak, the new blue worlds. Another point, since we really emotionalized organization with that series in 2021, we thought, well, let's continue that journey. And as I was sharing in the chat, that blue heart, which is kind of our corporate color, as you may notice, we found out that people, when they share content on LinkedIn, that they also get emotional, and using that blue heart and just all that. I would not express it as love, maybe that's maybe too much, but you know, how they like working with us and how emotional they see us as a tech company. And even our CEO, that's the upper right corner, is using that heart himself when he's doing official communications, which I also like. And that's what we will also continue, being super authentic, not too glossy, but really to the point, and allowing people a freedom, like also being entrepreneurial when they communicate with internals and external worlds. That's surely not enough, since we have kind of 1,000 positions to fill at the moment. That's for the company of our size, pretty lots. We have been thinking about crazy ideas. Our brand promise is that we are bold, innovative, and inspiring. And even HR can be entrepreneurial and inspiring. And so when we had in COVID days a get together and brainstorming, hey, how can we portray that employee reputation, employer brand piece to the public? Colleagues out of recruiting came up with a super crazy idea to do a 24-hour, so to speak, a 24-hour lasting recruiting event across the globe. Since we have so many time zones, since we have so many locations around the globe, okay, we decided to go for it, and we did it. This was the 21st, or no, it was the 18th of November, 2021, sorry for that. And you can still find a couple of recordings online and on YouTube. And we actually had lots of sessions on actually everything, female talent in tech companies as one. Sessions with our employee works council representatives, they've been also active into that. And we had a lot of content also when it comes to our core stuff like entrepreneurship, innovation, digital things, digital solutions, venture building, and leadership. And it was really nice because we could see that the applications increased by 40% the months after. So this was really good. And we have been shortlisted for a German HR award in it. So it was definitely worth doing it. And before I answer your question on the Career Pioneer series, I have to tell you that we started 9 a.m. that 18th of November and closed down at the 19th of November at 9 o'clock. And I was saying to the project team, we will never, ever do this again, because it was really exhausting. And doing it on a technical platform like here, it's surely also challenging if you're not a conference provider or conference organization, right? And when I got back out of such a room like this one onto my mailbox, there was first emails out of our organization like, when could we do it again in 2023? I have more ideas. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. We know how to improve. We know how to make it better. You know, that entrepreneurial thinking was just, just super crazy. And then the team talked me into it to do an even more crazy thing this year, which was our very first Körber Career Week, 5 days long. Each day was hosted by a business area, and I come back to that later. I pause here. How do we select, identify career pioneers? Very easy. People come back to us and tell us a story. And then we inform them that if they share it internally, we also would like to do it externally on external social media channels. And that's how we identify these people. And truly we know, since it's colleagues, you know, what they're doing and so on and so forth. So it's not like showing off stuff or being arrogant or just, you know, pushing others aside. We have actually a huge backlog because I think currently we have more than 100 people waiting to be published. So it's a really long queue for these ones. And since we look for certain profiles externally, we pick some which fit to that external profiles we're looking for. So that's how we select them, or how they select themselves actually, and we only let's say pass by the queue a bit if we feel that this profile could be beneficial for us in the employer brand and recruiting section. Yes, and the Employees Works Council participate voluntarily because also we stand together pretty closely. The relationship between the Employees Works Councils and us as employer is rather good, and we can really move ahead much quicker if we collaborate together, and if we have also discussions, and if we have arguments. That does not really count if we have a common target, if we have common goals, and just stand together. In Germany, well, we can do stuff with and without Works Council. It depends. There's a legal framework for that, Betriebsverfassungsgesetz. If you're interested, just look it up. I think there's an English translation also applicable. The career pioneers basically just get that educational piece. We have also a brand ambassador program in place, which we also foster, that internal people take part of that to understand the brand better, to also have arguments or just facts aside so that they can get into a dialogue if they wish to do so. Other than that, support's not needed because we believe in the authenticity of our people. And coming back maybe to the 24-hour career day, also there, content is pretty mixed. When you have a look at YouTube or the postings from last year, we did not really streamline and media train people. They've also doing pretty diverse sessions, and it worked out very well. And we did a very same thing this year. Before I jump into the it was a preview of the agenda, which you will see. We thought about, well, we do not want to do only a recruiting event. We also want to give back a couple of things to the general interested public in HR topics. That's why we've been setting up an agenda dealing with modern topics like, new work, leadership, personal brand, mindfulness, and sustainability. And we also invited kind of friends and family, so to speak, guests we have interactions with, like Jasmin Weiss, she's a professor in Nuremberg. She's also a well-known author. Or Florian Heidemann, he's doing a lot of venture building. Or Katharina Hölzle from Fraunhofer Institutes. But also people like Kristin doing trainings on business breathing or just breathing in general. And a lot of internal sessions like for the 24-hour career day as well. We had also trainings on personal brand, interview trainings, whatever. Yeah, just to give something back and also to offer an interesting program for our internal people, right? So that they can just jump into such a session, follow it, get impulses, and yeah, go from there, hopefully inspired back to their day-to-day job, and yeah, have then in the end a better performance and understanding what's maybe like leadership, new work, sustainability is all about. So that's what we really liked and love. If you also want to jump into the contents of the career week, don't hesitate to follow the postings. There was a LinkedIn site as well. And I'm not sure if we can exceed expectations for 2023 then in the end, because it's hard to just, after the 24-hour career day, after a whole week of career and leadership and personal brand content, to do a much better event in 2023. But since we are a pretty crazy team, well, stay tuned. We will announce it as soon as we have a plan. It all starts with leaders. That's what you commented already in Edwin's session. Yes. Crucial point, and we feel like if we do not enable our leaders to deal with all these VUCA things going around, if we cannot equip leaders to deal with more hybrid working conditions and with generations like X, Y, Z, baby boomers, which are still in the workplace very often, we didn't do a good job. So how do we attack leadership at Körber in order to form a culture which embraces all values we want to see in our day-to-day actions? We have been starting during the pandemic in 2022 and early 2021 to do a co-creation exercise on leadership principles. Why is leader so important? You know that from several studies, still in the top 2 boxes, if someone is doing an exit interview, it's the direct line manager, the leader, who is bringing a person to leave. So that's why we attacked this top 2 boxes and this one. And I will walk you quickly through it. We also had a couple of content on that on LinkedIn. We derive out of each and every principle actions. I'll come back to that in a minute. And it's not only, like that we just issue that catalog of leadership principles and let leaders go with it. No, there's a solid selection process, which we have been adjusting. We have leadership trainings we completely did from scratch. So to speak, greenfield approach, just forgetting everything, starting from new. And yeah, that's how we do it. So we hope that we can give you a glimpse out of our work here. Starting maybe with the 5 leadership principles. We are entrepreneurs. Our founder, as I said, 200 patents himself. It's important that each and every person working in Körber feels entrepreneurial and that leaders support that entrepreneurial thinking. We achieve results, and as Edwin also mentions, accountability is important also for customers, because very often we do really customer-centric solutions and solutions which only fit to that one customer. So results is important for the customer and for that market leadership through technology leadership ambition we are having. Demonstrating trust, super key to people, younger generations, but also baby boomers. They really love that someone is trusting them, even though they may be close to retirement. It's important to really equally treat people and to be inclusive when we have them. Enable and empower, that's about lifelong learning, enabling people which maybe do not check all boxes they have to check in their position, and also be open to go on a common learning journey. And we celebrate diverse perspectives. In our understanding, it's not only DI and DE and I, but it's also about opinions, it's about arguments, it's about dialogue, it's about also allowing people to have a different opinion, because innovation can only come if you allow multiple perspectives on the table and into a dialogue and discussions. And if I maybe just point out one action which I actually am currently participating, not for this hour, but in the course of this week, we had a mentoring event and we mixed and matched and we celebrate diverse perspective mentees all over our business areas and geographies we operate, mentees and mentors. And we even match different functions together, so to take the maximum out of it. And this closing event is happening in these days in Hamburg, and it's just fabulous how much impulses, how much inspiration we are all getting out of it, and how much concrete actions we can derive out of the feedback of our people participating in such a mentoring class. I pause for a moment and just look at the questions. Any data of the impact of our activities? Do we get more applications? Yes, and we get more applications and we get better applications and we get more dialogue. So if you take the career week, we had 53 on-site, so to speak, in the virtual format interviews already. And yes, it makes sense because a lot of people relate to this event when they approach a recruiter or approach myself asking for certain specifics of a job postings.
So first question is, which are some of the best strategies that would enable company to flourish and continue expanding in the competitive market? This is from Josef.
That's a good question. I mean, if I would have that recipe, I think I would be CEO of whatever company, right? I think what's the secret of Körber is that entrepreneurial thinking, that pretty technology and innovation-driven culture, because we are just operating in B2B markets. So in general, our customers, so big manufacturers, are pretty sure what they want, what they need, and that's why we have to be very customer-centric, and that's basically our success in that angle. And to be entrepreneurial and to be innovative and technology savvy, you have to really foster that innovative thinking. We also do internal ideation processes. We generate ideas, so what every company is doing, but that culture of really discussing stuff, being open about failures and learnings, I think this is the one thing which makes a difference to us from the culture I also perceive, not only for the innovative departments and customer-facing departments, but also for overhead functions such as HR, finance, supply chain, whatever, yeah. So that's maybe a recipe which we want to follow any further.
Another question, Sharu is asking, did you translate these leadership principles into behaviors or competencies framework in order to develop, assist leaders on these principles?
Yes, we made them diagnostic valid in order to also assess people. I come back to that in a second. Yeah. There's another question on the section I can see, the chat section. Who was involved in creating the leadership principles? Well, it started in HR. We did it with all HR people from all our business areas. We involved the business. We surely involved works councils with trial and test rounds. So it was an iterative process. And in the end, it was very easy because the 5 principles were kind of the same when we started out of the first workshops and focus groups. It was just maybe a little different wording to it. And that's why we have been very confident that these 5 are the real, true leadership principles we have to pursue. All right, let's continue what we do with the leadership principles in practice. As I said, it does not help to just show them. It's important to live them. And now I'm just not coming into my slide again. Let me check. Now, there we go. Yeah. First, we had a leadership conference in August and September this year here in our Hamburg headquarters locations, and we brought the leadership principles to life by actually a business play. Lea, our head of talent and development, and I did on stage. I'm the left-hand person and Lea is the right-hand person. I was playing the employee, she was playing the leader, and we did a lot of fun stuff in that play because we wanted our leaders to never ever forget what we have been showing to them in just making a bit funny, or just portrayed on a funny side and lighter side of life. Also at the leadership conference, we had a huge HR booth where people could inform themselves about tools, and Edwin was also talking lots about simplification, what to do, how to interact, giving advice, giving tools at hand. We have been doing also a leadership quiz there, which was also fun to watch how people got engaged to win prizes. And you see here also our top management, our CEO is heavily supporting these initiatives. This is the nice smiling guy on the very right, Stefan, and he's from the very start of it fully supporting that. Each and every board member has one of these principles as kind of mentor and ambassador, and they really do a good job on that one. Also, we developed a guidebook. This was also co-created with leaders around the world. You have to know that we do each and every month a leadership clubhouse, a virtual format. It's like, you know, that once hyped clubhouse thing, you can dial in and talk, just conversational, no real fixed agenda. And we interact there also globally with our top leaders and talents across the world. And we collect their ideas. We did it in an online format. We can enhance it with best practices. People can add their experience. They can download things they can do with their teams, plays, whatever, little exercises, and that's a growing thing. And you see here also self-check. You can do quizzes. You can do lots of stuff with it. And we think that's a growing platform. And we will just continue having it because we also feel once we are a bit more down the road with corporate culture, we will also offer a similar tool to our employees. Other than that, it's not enough to just talk and doing nothing to educate our leaders. As I said previously, we had a curriculum in place which was not any longer kind of fitting to the company situation and to the things we want our leaders to really embrace, not only here in the brain, but also in their hearts. And so we developed a learning journey for leaders which are young in position and more experienced leaders. We had in the year 2022 already 150 participants. That's huge because, you know, it's not a one-off training, it's really a learning journey across several months with 500 trainings and seminars within that. And also a lot of dialogues on performance and development. And actually, after these learning journeys are accomplished, we see that a lot of groups form alumni networks and stick together for peer-to-peer coaching and other modern ways of improving their leadership skills together. That's a good one. And this group is also a good sounding board for our ideas in HR, but not only for HR, for ideation, innovation processes. So that's what we see, that building a common ground with a common set of values, the leadership principles and actions helps our leaders to just become better. And sure, we cannot just stop that journey. We will continue that. We will have new formats in place for next year. We will also work on dialogues with a broader audience since we are only a very small team working on that. So learning and development team on group level is only 3 people, and they do it surely with all our business areas and the operations, because other than that, we cannot facilitate it. So that's a rocket science exercise we have to fulfill and accomplish. And in the end, we also want our leaders to stand up like the career pioneers, sharing their jobs. We have a hashtag Job Monday, where open positions hopefully are shared not only by the teams, but also by the hiring managers and leaders. And we also want them to stand out and show what's Körber all about in external media. We have trainings for them. We also offer coaching tool for more one-to-one related stuff some leaders want to work or have to work on. And we also want to go into the direction of behavioral assessments of leaders, not only when we hire people, but also when we assess leaders on common ground. And as previously mentioned, yes, this is stuff, at least for Germany, this has to be aligned also with our works council representatives. That means it will take us a while. The leadership principles are known to the employees, Franziska. So that's transparent. You can go into the intranets and have a look at them. And the leadership principle, sure, but not everyone, can deliver each and everything of it by the person itself. If you take achieve results, a single person can do it for their own job or their own tasks. It's hard to do it maybe on an overall scale. So yes, applicable, but we work on more operationalizing them into a culture framework in the course of 2023. Other than that, I maybe jump to the next slide because, as Edwin also said, dialogue is important to us. I'm pretty open on LinkedIn as well, And as I said, we have plenty of positions to fill also within HR, since this is more or less an HR community here. Check out our HR vacancies, and we love to have you with us to work on exciting stuff and to form a culture which should truly deserve our claim, home for entrepreneurs. And that's what we will continue to work on. Thanks for listening, and happy to answer more questions. And I'm now again checking if I can go and jump into the Q&A section again.
Gabriele, thank you so much for this great session. We don't have any more questions in the Q&A section.
That's cool.
And we are at the point where we need to jump on to the next session. So as you mentioned, everyone can have a chat with you on LinkedIn and connect with you on LinkedIn to continue the conversation. If they have any more questions, I'm sure you're very happy to answer them.
Absolutely. And you see, Katharina, one of my favorite team colleagues here in compensation benefits team, is sharing the link to the job board as well. If she stays online, just ask her directly. And Katharina, may I can mention it last thing, you know, we had a very interesting interview and you've been challenging me a lot in that interview, and I could talk you into that role. And I hope we made you happy being with us so far. And I'm counting on you as, so to speak, culture and brand ambassador in that session here, since I have to go back to the mentoring initiative. Have a great year at the Congress, and hope to speak or meet you soon.
Indeed. Thank you, Gabriele.
Thank you. Bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, our next session shall be starting. Meghan Stettler, Director of OC Tanner Institute, on the 2023 Global Culture Report highlights. So we shall jump right into it. We're just on time.
Well, hello, everyone. It is such a pleasure and honor to be able to join HR Congress to discuss rethinking workplace culture to win the new contest for talent. It has been a bit of a jungle out there, I think we can all agree, but with some intention, we can create those thriving communities of belonging, fulfillment, and appreciation. As mentioned, I'm Meghan Stettler, Director at the OC Tanner Institute, where our research and education on workplace culture, the employee experience, and recognition help organizations and their people to thrive. You go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn. I always love continuing the conversation and learning from all of you on this great platform. Well, let's go ahead and get started. It has been a challenging couple of years, to say the least, of isolation, social distancing, uncertainty, loneliness. And amid these looming feelings of the future, employees are really taking this opportunity to rethink their lives. And they're looking for new ways of working that are ultimately more fulfilling. We're all craving that sense of belonging and meaningful connection. And simply put, we want to be part of a community. Because since the spring of 2021, millions of employees have voluntarily quit their jobs in search for something better. And these great and hidden resignations have ultimately resulted in a new contest for talent that makes previous scenarios look like mere skirmishes or just games. So here we are, we're at a crossroads where we are caught in the middle of recovering from recent crises and preparing for an economic forecast, a political forecast, geopolitical forecast, social forecast that all could be ultimately damaging to culture. And so part of the challenge right now is really determining where to invest our effort and resources, because as a research institute, we have seen workplace culture scores go up, we have seen engagement scores go up, but the great resignation still persists. In the UK right now, just over 1 in 2 employees are at risk of attrition. So we really took a deep dive this year in our annual Global Culture Report to study that employee experience and really uncover those insights and latest trends into workplace culture. Our research curated the perspectives of 36,000 employees and leaders, and we analyzed 15 million data points. This is how it breaks out across the globe. You can see UK and Europe making up roughly 18% of that global workplace study. So we're really serious when we say that this is a global report, and we're happy to reflect that UK and broader European data within that. We distilled all of those key findings into what we'll be covering in today's presentation, namely the need for workplace community amid widespread fragmentation and disconnection, why we need to help people find and sustainably create a fulfilling employee experience, why leaders are at risk now more than ever before The power of integrated recognition to build community, create fulfilling experiences, and fortify those weary leaders, and how symbolic awards can really help connect people to the history and story of your organization in shaping very powerful memories that can really last for generations. Well, let's go ahead and get started here with workplace community. That's really the umbrella theme of this year's report. And I think it's spot on because we've seen trust in traditional institutions, albeit political or educational or religious, increasingly diminish. And employees are really looking to organizations as their new ground zero of community. Well, what is workplace community, and is it different than workplace culture? Turns out it is, but they're very synergistic. Workplace culture is really that social operating system that influences the way we work and interact, whereas community is what brings people together and unifies them under shared goals. I like to think of it simply as belonging with a purpose. And that definition really supports the data that we have been finding, that when employees have a strong workplace community, we see an 8 times increase in the odds that they feel like they belong. And that's really the end of that sentence that we're really hoping to get to of the DEI and B initiatives, right? That sense of belonging, because that belonging affects several important outcomes, especially again in the wake of the great and hidden resignations. You see a 43% increase in retention, 84% increase in estimated tenure, the length somebody stays at your organization, and a near 40% drop in burnout, another key reason why people are quitting. So this belonging makes so much sense because we're not having to deal with overt and covert microaggressions. So what makes up a community? Well, this year we uncovered 8 essential elements of a strong workplace community, anything from shared goals and commitment to communication and feedback, camaraderie and trust, adaptation, and unity. I think what I'm most excited about is that these 8 elements make up an index, as you can see here, and it provides a really great framework for leaders to evaluate their current situation, make plans for improvement, and then measure those progress and outcomes over time. Let me introduce you to a great workplace community, Erdetto. As the world increasingly leaves a digital trail, Erdetto really enables people and companies to experience connectivity effortlessly by protecting them from cyber attacks. And beyond this cutting edge technology, their secret code of success is really forging a strong workplace community among its 900 people in 21 different countries. And they really pull the levers of including diversity of thought in conversation and contribution, in engagement and growth and development, and really leaning into this notion of recognition to amplify everyone and those outcomes. They say reward and recognition goes a long way in ensuring community. Culture Cloud, which is the platform that they use to give recognition, allows us to celebrate career milestones, give e-cards and awards to anyone within our global organization. This is one of the ways we're able to bring people of all countries together. So it's uniting people in a sense of belonging with that shared purpose to create a greater community, global community across those 21 different countries. I love that. So just a couple of recommendations to consider, to keep in mind as we work to improve that sense of community. The first one is to ensure that recognition is integrated into your workplace community. Why? Because 3/4 of employees, 74%, say that recognition is really a crucial part of that workplace community. In order for it to be integrated, it's got to be an everyday part of culture where it is given, received, and observed often across the organization. It's got to come from peers and leaders, and it's got to acknowledge both the large and small dimensions of great work in very personalized and meaningful ways. The second consideration is to practice modern leadership, where leaders really know the individuals on their teams and they actively facilitate their growth and development and connection to purpose. Lastly, the third is to solicit and to respond to employee feedback. Our data really indicates that when leaders actively listen and appropriately address feedback, the odds of having a strong workplace community improve by 6 times. So when you take into consideration recognition, modern leadership, and then of course feedback, the pool net result of all of these together greatly increase the odds that employees are going to feel like they belong, that they're promoting or recommending your organization as a great place to work, and they're focused on doing their very best work as well. Well, if workplace community is the overall umbrella theme of this year's report, then fulfillment is the overall outcome that employees are really searching for. We all work in HR. We have seen a laundry list of demands that people request and want from their daily employee experience. But when you boil it all down, it really comes to one notion, and that is finding fulfillment at work. And this notion of fulfillment is really meaningful because each one of us can relate to this sentiment. It's highly emotive, it's highly personal. We know when we're fulfilled and when we aren't. And it's really this employee fulfillment or lack thereof that is causing people to stay at your organization or to leave. Check out this example, for instance, from Laura. She said, I resigned from my dream job only 8 weeks in. Yikes. I think we can all cringe at that notion, right? She said, I realized that it wasn't well suited to my skills and background. And while the little devil on my shoulder told me to stick around for the title and hefty paycheck, I was miserable and unfulfilled. And so I walked. I learned what gives me purpose and joy in my work and what doesn't. So here I am again, looking for a role that's going to bring me all those things I crave. Ultimately, a role that's going to help her feel highly fulfilled. So it should come as no surprise that highly fulfilled employees stay at their organization 3 additional years than those that are unfulfilled. And what's very fascinating to us as researchers is that the correlation of fulfillment to workplace outcomes like this is so compelling that employee fulfillment almost appears to be the superior indicator of employee sentiment and the propensity to do great work compared to traditional measures such as engagement. I know that's a loaded thing to say, but fulfillment is really the next iteration and step into really realizing the final outcome and output of an employee. So we found the fulfillment like community. We provided an index where it is derived from 4 different concepts. So community, connection, belonging, what we just spoke about, this idea of growth and development, that connection to purpose, and balance. And this model really incorporates and builds upon the research that we did last year about the fundamental psychological needs that we all have as human beings. It's part of a self-determination model that was uncovered in the 1970s of the need for autonomy, mastery, and connection. And when those needs are met, especially at work, it creates these peak moments that disproportionately impact our perception of fulfillment. I want to call out balance here in particular because we normally see it phrased as work-life balance, but I want to note a reframe here because when we reached out to employees, to them it was all life, and work was really just a subset of life. And so really when we talk about balance, it really is balance in life and making sure that we have highly fulfilled balance when it comes to all the components of our lives. Because when employees rate all 4 areas high, there's a 21 times increase in the likelihood of fulfillment. I think that's a very large statistic. And I think what's interesting to note here is the nuances, right? And talking to your employees as well as what matters to them most, what area is lacking. It's just sitting down with them and saying, let's talk about these 4 areas and how they show up for you in your daily experience. You know, when I was younger in my career, I was very much driven by growth and development and purpose. Now that I am later in my career, I really want balance and community because those are the things that really got thrown out the window when I was so driven to achieve and grow and excel up the corporate ladder. And it really is about measuring against the different outcomes and saying, what is ultimately going to build a very sustainable and fulfilling future for you? So let's talk about these 4 elements and roadmap to better opportunities. I really love how Dow is doubling down on balance. They have a cultural initiative called Design Your Day. And it's really just one example of many of how this company is encouraging fulfillment. Their employees get to co-create their most optimal schedule according to their roles, their responsibilities, and their personal preferences. And they're doing something really smart. They're making sure that their flexibility plans are inextricably linked with their DEI and B initiatives. So people feel connected, they feel visible, and they feel valued, not just for the work they do, but for really who they are and the lifestyle that they lead. Take, for example, Alexander Dahl, he's their head of public affairs, and he snapped this photo one day on a Zoom call. And he said, look at these 2 little handsome guys showed up to say hi to everyone on the team. And he said it felt so normal, just business as usual. And he said that's because our global focus on bringing your full self to work and design your day is not just a tick the box corporate program. It's a genuine effort to make our lives easier. That's when you know you've achieved a successful, fulfilling program and outcome. It's not just a program, right? It genuinely changes the daily employee experience for the better, in this particular case, through balance and fulfillment. Dow's also working to integrate recognition into everyday employee experiences to reinforce belonging and shared purpose and contributions, and again, visibility over no matter where they work or how they work. So you can see here the added benefits of recognition to each component of fulfillment. It vastly increases the likelihood of high fulfillment in each one of these buckets. For instance, if you just take balance, right? If you call out the great work being done, but also how that person ensured balance in their lives, so they were highly fulfilled in their outside passions and hobbies and the way that they spent their time with their friends and families, etc., to create a way of working that is sustainable while still producing great work, it increases the likelihood of that fulfillment in that area by 133 times. So you can see, if just by way of giving recognition and calling out how these different areas are being advanced in how you recognize somebody, increases the visibility and reinforces that fulfillment. So just some recommendations as we truck along here on this global culture study. We need to continually communicate a sense of community by frequently telling our people that they're meaningfully contributing to that common purpose in their teams and their departments and the overall organization. We need to really lean in to providing autonomy and flexibility to encourage balance. Employees, they understand and they respect guidelines, but they just want to have some flexibility within those guidelines based on their roles and responsibilities and just their personal preferences of how they like to work and operate. Flexibility, I think we can all agree, is the new currency of the workplace. We also need to offer opportunities for employees to grow and develop and ultimately demonstrate and celebrate their personal mastery and competencies. We need to acknowledge the great work and how that person uniquely contributed with their skills, their talents, their perspectives, their personality. That helps bring the belonging element into this whole mix. And then, of course, as I had alluded to, use recognition to showcase how employees are delivering these outcomes, because it reinforces all 4 areas of these fulfillment when you do it well. So who's in charge of creating a fulfilling employee experience? It's leaders, right? You know, it's been interesting because we've been studying leaders for several years, and year after year, we are just struck by the critical nature of their roles and their potential to create environments where team members can thrive and do their very best work. And historically, leaders have always fared better than individual contributors. But for the first time, we have found that leaders are experiencing the highest levels of stress and burnout. And it really makes sense because they are under a magnifying glass right now, and they are often blamed for the poor outcomes that have been produced during the pandemic, right? Just take a look at some of these headlines. Bad managers are costing employers their workforce. COVID-19 didn't challenge managers, it exposed them. And quiet quitting is about bad bosses, not bad employees. So right now, and I frankly am surprised that this number isn't larger, 43% of leaders are saying that work is interfering with their ability to be happy in other areas of life. They're not fulfilled at work, they're not fulfilled at home because all of this negative sentiment is just bleeding into their time away. Burnout has really been a challenge, when it comes to employees at large, but burned out leaders is extra troubling, because if you lose your leaders, you really lose your opportunity to build community and provide a fulfilling workplace culture. You miss the glue that holds everything together. And these sentiments are really not surprising, because when you think about it, leaders are dealing with expanded roles and responsibilities and expectations. We have asked, and we continue to ask, more and more from them, right? From managing team performance and delivering outcomes, that's always been the norm. But we've stacked other things on top of that, and perhaps rightly so. We've asked them to look out and take care of their team's well-being and inclusion. We've asked them to adapt to managing remote and hybrid teams with little training, and we've asked them to step in and fill the work gaps as they continually hire, train, and bring on record number of new employees. So we have understandably leaned on our leaders to step up in times of crisis, but very few of us have really asked them how they're holding up. Because the truth is, organizations have really swung the pendulum so far in the direction of the employee, and we've focused on engaging and retaining them, that we have all but overlooked all of our leaders. In fact, Gartner reports that only 14% of companies have deliberately attempted to ease their leaders' burdens. We have failed to acknowledge at the end of the day that employees are that leaders are employees too. Let that sink in for a moment, right? We need to create a fulfilling experience for them. We need to create community and belonging. Who's really taking care of our leaders as they're so busy taking care of other people? And many of them are feeling caught and trapped in the middle. And we especially see this with mid-level managers, right? You have almost a dual identity role, that you are an employee, but you're a leader. And so which one wins at the end of the day in this tug of war, right? When they have a strong sense of loyalty to both the organization as well as to the team members that they serve. When that conflict happens, you can see appreciation declines. You can see exclusion is greatly maximized. They feel like they're all alone in an island unto themselves. And because of that, they experience far more levels of burnout. So that's why I really love what Standard Chartered is doing. They're a retail bank in the UK, as you all know, 750 branches, over 50 countries. And what they've done differently is that a lot of organizations are focusing on senior leader development and support, and they have really narrowed in on mid-level managers as their key in future growth. So rather than wholly redesigning the job of the mid-level manager, their executive team began with some basic steps. They changed the role's title. Managers became people leaders, which is really an acknowledgement of how important the human connection was in their work. It also helped clearly define what their roles and responsibilities were. They were hired to be a coach and an influencer, not somebody who steps in and does the work for the people. They are here to grow and develop their team and connect them here together. That's a very important differentiator because, again, leaders are feeling under pressure to deliver and produce. And in some cases, that means stepping in and doing the work themselves rather than championing another person to do it. And because to help in all of this, they also created an accreditation process, right? So they gave them the tools and the resources and support they need to be the type of leader they were searching for. And they strengthened that sense of managerial community so they felt connected, and those feelings of exclusion were far, far less because of it. So just a few recommendations to fortify our wary leaders out there. The first is we need to reduce stress and anxiety for all leaders by building connections at every level of leadership and really reinforcing how much they matter and are part of a workplace community, not merely a mediator for employees or the organization. Second, we need to consult with and we need to consider the effects of change management plans on the experience, on the workload and burnout of our leaders, right? How are those changes going to impact them? And then if there are some adjustments that need to be made, we need to provide them with the training and the resources necessary to take on those expanded roles and responsibilities. Lastly, we need to lean into recognition because while we pay leaders more, and they acknowledge that in our focus groups, most of them said, I don't need recognition because I'm paid more. I get that in my compensation. And then we chipped away at them a little bit and they said, actually, it doesn't work. That's not how I feel valued or fulfilled or seen. I get paid more. That's it at the end of the day. So we really need to make sure that we're acknowledging leaders for their contributions, especially those mid-level managers in terms of their work and how they're uniquely contributing, right? Most of leaders told us in these focus groups that it's, it's nice getting recognition, of course, from the top, but they would like some acknowledgement from the people that they're working so hard on behalf of, just to let them know that they're doing well as a leader, that they're helping their team manage their well-being and balance, that they're helping them grow and develop. They're like, we just don't hear that from the people that we're trying to serve and work on behalf of. I thought that was very, very interesting. That recognition is everyone's responsibility. We sometimes think of it coming from the top down, but more importantly as well, we need to consider it coming from the bottom up. That leads us to our next chapter, the importance of integrated recognition, because as I said in the introduction, without it being integrated, and by that I mean moving from a once or twice a year transaction to an everyday reflection of your culture and employee experience, we're not going to be able to create the types of communities, fulfilling employee experiences, and leadership opportunities for us to really have the outcomes that we're truly desiring. Recognition just comes across as empty and inauthentic, and as a transaction. So to help us really understand what we mean by integrated recognition and how to get there, we published this recognition integration model a couple years ago, again, to help people evaluate where they are and to really plan for the future. Integrated recognition, why this is so important in establishing a thriving workplace community is that it leads to continually positive outcomes over and over, even in the wake of very difficult circumstances. Take this example from Novartis. They use very timely, meaningful, symbolic recognition to thank their people very often. I love what Atika says here, that thank you, Novartis, for bridging the gap, even in this virtual world, and appreciating my small efforts with this lovely gesture. Looking at this token today, I recall all and every conversation, time, energy of both distress and relief, along with satisfaction during these COVID times. Recognition done well helps us weather storms, and it helps us change our sentiment about the difficult circumstances that we may be traveling through to ultimately reshape our perspective of that employee experience to be satisfying and fulfilling. She didn't forget the distress, but she also leaned into this notion of how she got relief and how she was satisfied during these very difficult times because someone said thank you in a very meaningful and personal way for all of the sacrifices that had happened in the middle of the pandemic. Unfortunately, only 21% of organizations score high in integrated recognition. And I want that to sink in for a minute because we've seen a great uptick in the importance of saying thank you to people in the middle of this crisis. And still yet, 2.5 years later, only 21% of organizations are doing it really, really well. And we asked ourselves why. Why is this so difficult to achieve? And we discovered an underlying challenge that may surprise you. Turns out it's our memories. Memories of past recognition experience have a profound and enduring influence. So like many things, right, our perceptions, our experiences, our memories influence and shape how we view our present circumstances, both good and bad. So many employees, as you can recall from that 21%, have experienced less than meaningful recognition in the past. And that's an important insight, though, because that means we can be very intentional about providing early and frequent and meaningful recognition to them. Because if you don't, employees who have experienced low RI or bad recognition of their organizations report several shortcomings, right? They're far more likely to say that recognition is inauthentic, the leader isn't genuine, or they would prefer to receive no recognition because, as we all know, the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. So this is the type of sentiment that is most likely rolling into your organization today, right? When people are hired new, more often we are inheriting that recognition baggage or sentiment, or in the case of the holidays in Charles Dickens, the ghost of recognition past, continue to haunt us and shape our memories and how we interact and interface with people today. So now that we know the primary barrier to achieving high recognition integration, we can really start to unpack and move that needle towards achieving those outcomes. And I'm telling you now, it's going to require some intentional commitment. It's not just a check the box exercise. This requires thoughtfully designed programs aligned to culture and the tools, education, and resources to put it into motion to reshape new and powerful memories. So some recommendations that we have moving forward to help offset or reframe recognition for those who doubt its authenticity or value. The first is to really help dispel those ghosts of recognition past from the get-go. And that means onboarding is crucial and fundamental. This is really your time to neutralize those negative memories, to hit the reset button and show them what a high RI culture is all about. So consider things like a note and card from peer and leaders, a customer personalized symbolic award to commemorate the start of that journey, a sort of company swag that is really tied into the purpose and meaning of your organization, as well as time to socialize with other new hires and time to introduce them to how you say thank you in your organization and allow them time to thank the people who have brought them up to this moment. This really is your opportunity to exceed their expectations of what an onboarding experience is all about. And frankly, for the variety, and I should say for the majority of people out there, it's just that standard HR paperwork and system setup, right? We've got to exceed that to really show them that they're a part of this organization and they're going to achieve impact early and often and celebrate them from day one. I love this. I love this story from Amanda at Airdetto again. She said she was just on board and she said, already I received a warm welcome and a lovely onboarding package. And particularly, I really appreciate the culture map. One of the reasons I joined Airdetto is for its people and inclusive culture. With more than 65 different nationalities in Airdetto, this book will certainly come in handy. So you can see that they're connecting her early on to the purpose of the organization, showing her what the culture is all about, and then equipping her with the tools and opportunities to succeed in communicating across a wide variety of different nationalities. I love that. And more often we're seeing this. People are taking to social media to say, I have joined a new company. This is how great and cool it is. And look at the stuff that I have received that really showcases how important I am to the organization and my joining. This year, we also took a deeper dive into also what it takes to overcome these bad memories. And we realized that it's the lack of frequency in monetary, non-monetary, and company-wide recognition. It's just too low, right? It comes across as a transaction because it doesn't happen often enough. When I look at the low RI on this chart and I see that's recognizing somebody with monetary and non-monetary recognition 7 times a year. I came from news and politics. So if somebody said thank you to me 7 times in a year, that would have been a career high. But today, I work for a very strong Fortune 100 best company to work for, right? It's very, very different. And you look and you swing over to what that high RI actually means. And that means you're giving monetary recognition once a month, non-monetary recognition about every 3 weeks, and company-wide once a quarter, for a total of 35 recognition moments per year per employee. Seems like a lot. You break it down monthly, 3 recognition moments a month. That's absolutely doable, right? And I love what Novartis is doing to make that happen. I'm going to turn to them again because they're just a great example of frequency. So like Airdetto, they use a technology system that allows them to celebrate their people through e-cards, award nominations, and company-wide celebrations with points attached. They can go in and use those points to exchange for an item that is truly meaningful to them. Take Abby, for instance. She says, my work bought me a bike. No, not like that. My actual work that was recognized by my colleagues, all of her great work. I saved up all my points my coworkers and upline sent me over the last 2 years, and I bought a Proform bike with it. I've already biked through all of Iceland, and I'm working my way through Croatia. I'm thankful for a workplace that understands there can never be enough recognition. I love how personalized and frequent and meaningful this recognition was to Abby. It not only lifted her social and emotional psyche and connection to her peers, her leader, and the organization, but the way that she used her points towards this gift, it's helped furthering her physical and mental well-being through the opportunity to exercise in very fun and impactful ways. My guess is every time she jumps on that bike, she's reminded of the many micro moments of appreciation that has happened across those past 2 years of the pandemic to allow her to have this great celebration opportunity every day to ride her bike. So knowing that people have been fragmented and disconnected for a while now, and that we need company-wide celebration 4 times a year to bring everybody back together in that shared community, we asked ourselves, how much should people be spending? How much is too much? How little is too little to achieve great culture impact? And so what we did is we conducted an experiment. We tested various dollar amounts against the probability of cultural outcomes in this case, it's the probability of engagement. And what you see here is that we found that the dollar award amount of $5 actually detracted from engagement. You can see quite significantly, almost 30% decrease in engagement. But those dollar amounts of $50, $250, and $500 obviously increased engagement, and in many cases quite substantially. But here's the interesting thing, right? It peters off after $250. So really the sweet spot is between $50 and $250 per employee per celebration. Say you only have $250 per employee per year. You would be better off carving that up into smaller, more frequent recognition experiences that are highly tailored and greatly focused in meaning and communication, but never dipping below the $50 mark. So I hope that provides you with some great guidance. An additional story I think I might have time is I sat down with an employee the other day of an organization, and she said, I went into my leader and I said, I've done great work for 6 months. I am burnt out. I am spent. No one has called attention to what I've done. And, it's really making me wonder if I'm going to stay here any longer. And the leader said, no, you're doing a great job. You're doing great work, and we'd love to have you stay. And after, he gave her a monetary recognition, roughly of the monetary equivalent of $7.50. And she said, wow. 6 months of burnout, and this is what I get, $7.50. So again, you can see that this psyche, right, of the dollar amount and the award and the contribution, it all comes into play. So hopefully this guidance, again, this is in the particular case, not of individual, like what I was talking about here, but of company-wide celebration, can really be helpful in guiding your efforts. We just celebrated 95 years at OC Tanner, which is fantastic. We are a pioneer in our industry, in the recognition and workplace culture industry, since 1927. And we have curated modern recognition experiences today that help us and a variety of organizations across the world thrive, and their people to feel connected and valued. We received this beautiful award that really reinforced the feelings that we have about our organization, that we are a big family, and we celebrated globally in a variety of different ways. But I love what Hannah Gonzalez, she's an employee out of the United Kingdom, said. But she said, being part of a company with so much history, passion, and love for recognition has been a blessing. You really feel the presence of recognition, love, and appreciation here at OC Tanner. And I love that I'm able to help my clients do the same for their organizations. We're all given these beautiful string of bags branded with "we're family," and that's what we really are. So thank you, OC Tanner. Happy 95 years. I can't wait to be here for when the company turns 100. So again, increases that loyalty and that connection to the organization and how we deliver on it. I love what we did for our UK teammates as well, to help them celebrate very personally with the Queen's 70th year on the throne. You can see that at OC Tanner, celebrating these milestones really, really matters to us. And we thought it was just a very fun and wonderful experience to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee as well. You can see with cardboard cutouts and these beautiful gift packages that are very specific and tailored to our UK employees. What a fun way to celebrate a great milestone. So in order to achieve high RI, we really have to have the right education and tools. We need to teach our people why recognition matters, right? How it is advancing our strategic objectives and outcomes personally and as an organization. We also need to know how to personalize that recognition and make it meaningful and appropriate across both the large and small accomplishments. The second is, we often see in low RI cultures that they restrict who can give and what people can give as well. The opposite is true for high RI, where everyone can participate in recognizing for a variety of reasons. And lastly, we need to provide those tools and leverage the technology to recognize in that normal flow of work. That's going to maximize participation and make sure that it's just easy to do and is at our fingertips. So HireEye really requires us to use a variety of award options, ranging from those micro-monetary, non-monetary e-cards with points to also those symbolic awards as well. That leads us into our final chapter in rounding out our time here today on symbolism. We have seen symbols used since the beginning of time to help people come together under shared meaning and purpose in ways that just go beyond words, right? We intuitively know that symbols and symbolic awards help connect us and elevate those moments and memories in our lives that stay with us for a long, long time. And so we really wanted to dig deeper to understand, again, how you can really impact the memory with a symbolic award and experience. And we found that symbolic awards vastly improve recall and impact across recognition. And I want to note that when we say symbolic awards, we're not talking about plaques, we're not talking about certificates or tchotchkes. We are talking about highly curated awards that reflect your company's identity and reputation, history, and its stories. Because when those are integrated into a recognition experience, employees are 3 times more likely to remember that experience for a long, long time. And when you stack that against other recognition awards, especially that generic award, you can see it just blows it out of the water in both sentiment, polarity, and magnitude of that memory, right? You can also see that cash or gift cards and redeemable points are pretty much on par. So you've got a lot of flexibility here, again, in how you shape these different recognition moments for your people. So when I say symbolic awards, certainly they amplify memory, but they also amplify cultural outcomes. You can see in that top right-hand graph, I know it's a bit small, but this is the impact on retention. We measured it at the 6-month, 1, 3, 5, 10, 15-year mark. And you can see that it's just a significant difference. This is, the green line is with no symbolic award, and the yellow line is with symbolism. And so you can see here that, especially in the case of the 1 and the 3 year, it nearly doubles, doubles or nearly doubles. And those are crucial times, right? You have a career high at the 6 and 1 year mark, and then it starts dipping down at the 3 and the 5 years. So trying to get people across those career milestones, this is going to provide a significant and exponential lift as they then move on to the 10, 15 years. So this really is an important reminder of the value of early recognition that includes symbolism. Another key insight is that the meaning of these symbolic awards increase over time. You can see this, it's fairly low at the 6-month mark. We're not going to lie to you and say that people are going to be deeply connected to these symbols right when they join your organization. But you can see that the path diverges quite greatly as well, and quite significantly to increase meaning over time. So as time really passes, employees in that experience, it becomes a part of that shared history together, and the meaning just skyrockets. And I use that word intentionally because it reminds me of my grandfather. He's the handsome fellow on the right-hand side of your screen. He built rockets for a living. And every time they launched something into space, they would receive a symbolic patch, or if it was extra special, a piece of jewelry. Well, across his decades and decades at this organization, he collected all of these patches and he gave the jewelry to my grandmother. Well, when he retired, my mom sewed all of these patches into an heirloom quilt. And he showed a couple of buddies, and they just went bonkers. They're like, this is amazing. And it ended up being honored and recognized and displayed by the organization and community at large because they felt so connected to the legacy of helping the world defy gravity. It brought them together as a community. Today, we have that quilt still in our family that we pull out and use and wrap grandkids in. And it's really, really fun reminder of his impact on the world. I also get to wear the jewelry and emblems of his hard work, which includes this pin that you can see on my lapel right there. It is a pin that has been in our family now 75 years, and it was originally manufactured and created by O.C. Tanner. I had no idea until I joined this company and somebody gave a presentation on all of the historic symbols that we have created across the decades. And I went, oh my gosh, I have one of those. It's in my jewelry case. And I ran over and grabbed it. And I was like, this is my grandfather's award from 75 years ago. This means so much to our family that we have kept it, and we share the stories of his passion and success for all of these years, it was a very crazy 360-degree moment that I experienced in my life and my career. And so what I want to leave you with is done well, symbols not only unite your people organizationally, but they can interconnect these families generationally as well, in that shared sense of pride, of contribution, and global impact. So why are symbols so meaningful? Well, our research shows that when we give them, we really tell our organization's story, and the people that we give them to become a part of that story. And these badges, they become, or these items, they become badges of honor through time that increase in meaning and in memory and in belonging and the way that they cultivate community, right? We become a part of the brick and mortar of that organization's story and history and legacy. I love that. You know, I talked about how my mom had to put all of these patches together into a quilt to bring them all together in one beautiful summation of my grandfather's contributions. And I love what some of the symbols that we produce here today do just that. These are called careerscapes, where it is a very personalized remembrance of an employee's journey across their entire time at an organization. No one person has the same careerscape. That's how individual they are. So they're leaving with this great memory that's all pooled together and tells the story of their contribution. Other cool experiences with symbols, from pins and yearbooks with words and pictures of the memories that they have shared at an organization. Here's somebody celebrating 1 year at Johnson Matthey, saying, I look forward to many years to come. And then somebody at Nutrien celebrating 5 years, saying how much they love working in agriculture and being a part of a network of such passionate people who work hard every single day to support their farmers. This is somebody who should be, for all intents and purposes of our research, at a career low, 5-year mark, career low. And this is it. This is it right here. This is the outcome. You can see in these amazing statistics here that when symbolic awards are meaningful, they're used early, they're part of a great recognition experience, the probability of having that type of thriving culture where people want to join, engage, and be part of it and stay and do their very best work increases by nearly 18 times, right? So these experiences help create resiliency and help people identify new and innovative ways of working to do great work. So just as a brief wrap up here today, employees, they want to join, meaningfully contribute, and stay with companies with healthy workplace communities. Fulfillment is a superior indicator of employee sentiment and that propensity to do great work. We've got to fortify our wary leaders and remember that they're employees too. And high RI cultures that incorporate symbolic awards strengthen community, increase fulfillment, and fortify those wary leaders. Head to our website for your free copy of the Global Culture Report at octanner.com. And thank you again for letting me join you today. It's been a fantastic experience. Always feel free to reach out. I'm here for any questions or comments, or just to continue that conversation on LinkedIn. And with that, I'll sign off and give this back to HR Congress. Have a great, great conference, everyone. Bye.
Great session by Meghan. And ladies and gentlemen, if you do want to download the report, you can go to the handout section, and in the handout section you can directly download the report as well as all the other bits and pieces for this segment. And I would like to thank you all for being with us today, and thank you for OC Tanner for making this culture track possible. We are going for a half-an-hour break, and after that at 1 p.m. CET, we shall be starting the other two tracks, belonging and organization reinvention and future of work. I will be leading the belonging track here with OC Tanner again. So please do join us. Look forward to seeing you here in half an hour.